get started.
Hi everyone, my name is Carlos Sanchez, and today I'm going to tell you a story about how trying to do something good for our economy and our environment turned into something really bad, and more importantly, I'm going to tell you what I think we can do to turn this story around. Um, so the story starts here in South Baltimore on 2008. I was 3 years old, and our zip code of 21226 had the worst levels of toxic air emissions in the whole country. Can you believe it? The entire country. And students at the high school I currently go to, Benjamin Franklin High School, learn about a major development the plan on building the biggest incinerator in U.S. history, literally more like around a mile away from the school. The students who came before me wanted to understand how this development was being supported and how it was even allowed within our communities, even though it was already being burdened with toxic air.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, one of the students is actually here with me today, Shoshana Campbell. Can you tell us like more about this, um, how you came across making for your voice and you know what you learned?
Yeah, of course, Carlos. Thanks. I think exactly what you just said, knowing that history around growing up around in this environment that had a high levels of pollution. We've seen it a lot in upper respiratory illness, cancer, asthma. We've seen it in those health damages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as high school students, when starting for your voice, we wanted to make a change in our communities. And then we heard about this proposal to build the nation's largest incinerator, right? And at that time, we were like, okay, what does that really mean for us, you know? And then we started to link all of those things that we've seen in the community to these different polluting industries, right? And then we realized this is not normal. And so once we knew that this development was trying to take place as a proposal, and it was actually less than a mile away from the school. And when you think about it, there is actually laws surrounding the fact that you can't put like a polluting industry like an incinerator less than a mile away from a school, right? But this company along not only got around that, but they also got around by lobbying for the state government to pass a law that would elevate trans incineration to tier one renewable energy source here in Maryland. And you know, that's like comparing it, if I had to make a comparison to wind and solar. So it's saying incineration, that energy that you get from it, that process of burning trash, that's just the same as solar and wind. And that's, we all know that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But you know, when learning about this, we wanted to know exactly what you just asked. That question of like, how the heck is this possible? Like, really, why is this happening? Like, how could this community get another polluting industry and it just be normalized in this way? And you know, like, this company didn't only like they did a really good job at planning around this, right? They used money. You know, money talks. And we live in a world where money gets you what you want, right? If you got enough of it, just name your price. Everything has a price. And the price of our community was some donations from the company that was going to be building the incinerator. And that was to the to lobby around that policy being passed. So they wanted that policy that was going to elevate this to a tier one renewable energy so it can get $1 million in subsidy. So then they were going to get public money from people. Basically, we were going to pay them to pollute our community. And that makes no sense. And so we knew that made no sense. But, you know, they had the money. Of course, we had to, like, morally, we knew we were right? Because we knew, like, we couldn't let our community be burnt out. And so when you think about it, this company did that good of a job because all of this happened, really, this policy, a lot of day-to-day people, you know, that were probably going to work, that were taking care of their kids, that were taking care of their household, they didn't know about this bill. Like, And while they were just doing the normal things that they do to try to survive already in the hardship that they are already having, there was a bill that was going to determine their community health that they didn't even have an impact on. And that bill passed because a company with money lobbied for it so they can create profit from this new infrastructure that they was going to be creating, which was that incinerator. And so really, what happened next is that after that company, they decided where they wanted it, and they lobbied to get not to make it okay for them to be less than a mile away from a school. Then they lobbied for a law to be passed to get actual millions of dollars in subsidies by saying it's renewable energy. Not only did they do that, but then they started to do the part of like securing people into a contract that they would be able to say, okay, this is their collective buying power is going to help me create this incinerator. And so there were 22 public institutions, and one in particular that really, like, as youth for your voice, that really hurt us the most was the fact that the school that we went to, and this, like, Ben was very supportive, like this, I went to Ben, Carlos go to Ben currently, but it was very supportive in the fact that Ben Franklin did come out. They marched with us. They talked about this. But, the public school system was in on that contract. And they were going to be buying energy from this thing that was going to be hurting the students that they were supposed to protect, right? And so it was just an oxymoron that was happening. And not only the public schools, but there was Howard County University, like colleges that was going to be buying energy from it. There was the Baltimore Museum was going to be buying energy from it. And whether, they were sold on the fact that this was renewable energy, or if they actually knew that it wasn't, that it was going to be harmful to communities, what we did was we told them exactly what this incinerator was going to do. It was going to produce the worst sources. It was the worst levels of mercury, lead, in which we know what those things can do to the body. They're very harmful for human consumption, especially at the rate that it's going to be polluted into the community. And this incinerator was going to be importing thousands of tons of trash from over the East Coast into this community that was already burdened with a lot of polluting industries already. So it's just going to be adding to that. And so we spent 5 years of our lives really trying to dig ourselves out of this hole that was dug for us, not by us, but for us, by these companies that wanted to push policy so they can make a profit. And this public policy, the choice to actually do it, it's terrible. And it was very harmful. And it was really dehumanizing as people that this policy was going to be impacting in a harmful way, to see that it was just a decision that was made, and that was it. And the fact that decision wasn't overturned still to this day, it's even more devastating, because we didn't win. Because we did win, that proposal didn't happen, so the incinerator wasn't built. But we didn't win because there was because Merlin was like, oh my God, like, we can't pollute these communities. Let's take this. This is not renewable energy. Let's take this out. Let's backtrack. We didn't win because of that. We won because we have power in people. We have power in stories. We have power in knowing that right is right and wrong is wrong. And we knew that that incineration, the whole process, is harmful. And it's like, it's not going to a harmful process is not going to produce renewable energy. And so we really had to, we're still fighting, to like say that policy, need to be taken back. Like, that policy needs to be amended to not include incineration, because incineration is not renewable energy, such as wind and solar. And I know that you're going to talk a little bit about this, but all of that public subsidy that we're using to subsidize this bad thing can actually be subsidizing something good. Like a lot of the things that communities are calling for, at a level of trying to find solutions that's not harmful, and we can still deal with the waste that we produce. And so, we did get those institutions, out of those 22 public institutions, to really withdraw from that contract, and that is how that incinerator was stopped, because it didn't have that collective buying power it needed to actually make a profit. And so, yeah. So I guess what I would want to say to you is like, knowing that right now that this is that incineration is still renewable energy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. So, and thank you for giving us the insight about all of what really happened. And so, yeah, what my understanding, incineration is still counted as
Yeah.
by the state government as a tier one source of renewable energy, and so that means that the millions of dollars in subsidies. Can you guys you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to the city's worst air polluter, the Bresco incinerator.
Mm-hmm.
So try to imagine literally what can be a little bit worse than a choice for our public health, our climate, and our economy than to voluntarily, right, give up our public resources to the worst air polluter in the major U.S. city in the name of, promoting green usable energy, reusable energy, right? Green energy, right?
Yeah, it's just greenwashing it. Exactly.
Exactly. So I did promise, you guys that this story isn't only going to be about, what's going wrong in our part of the planet, but as well,
Mm-hmm.
what we're trying to, the opportunity to change this, the how we can turn this around. So I currently live in between the Bresco incinerator and the state's second worst source of methane, the Baltimore's publicly owned Quarantine Road landfill, right?
Yeah.
So both here are in South Baltimore, and we know that neither of these, burning and burying, those are our options. Neither of them are reliable or sustainable solutions.
Yeah.
So if they're not the right solutions if we really want to have a future on this planet, and because both of them are driven on turning materials and into trash and literally work against all efforts on achieving a zero waste future.
Mm-hmm.
So now they go against the designing, reduce, reuse, recycle, and composting. So now imagine this that you know instead of giving away millions on what is so-called renewable energy credits for burning trash, we give those food subsidies to develop a new compost infrastructure that we can turn that 40% of the waste stream that's food scraps and organics into soil healing compost, right?
Yeah.
So that is what we need right now, and thankfully there are an active movement that is connecting the dots to create a systemic approach to a zero waste future. This is the year that Maryland can remove all subsidies for dirty energy in the RPS, and this also needs to be the year that our state officials establish a fund for the urgent transition that we need in zero waste. Do you kind of want to talk more about like the fund and how, in case people want to get involved, how they could get involved?
Yeah, sure. I think that for you guys to get involved, like we're working on this daily, like every day, like we're working to make sure that incineration is not the choice that keeps being decided. That's not the choice that we made. That's a choice that was made for us. The choice that we are making is exactly what Carlos talked about, which is creating a community compost facility, that's going to deal with our food waste that's currently being burned and buried. And it can really move us to that zero waste future that we want. And right now, COVID did happen. We can't ignore that COVID happened, right? And since COVID did happen, what we can do as people is not go back to what we used to do. Like we can come out of COVID better. And coming out of COVID better is looking at the fact that we have a COVID relief fund that's going to be $650 million here in Baltimore. And really, what we are calling for is for at least 50 of that, 50 million of that to be used to get us closer to zero waste, right? To get us closer to this compost facility and get us moving away from incineration, period, while also addressing that incineration is not renewable. And we would love for you guys to get involved. We do have a petition to get food out of the waste stream that's going to be probably linked above or below that you can sign on to. We'll also have our emails on there. It's just mysbclt@gmail.com. Definitely reach out. We love to have conversations, or if you want to talk more about this effort, or like if you have different things that you can bring to the table, we would love to work with you. And because that's the only way that we're gonna really move away from burning and burying to a zero waste economy. And you can also email your state legislator, tell them like that incineration is not renewable energy. Talk about how this bill needs to be this law needs to be amended to not include in the RPS incineration because it's not renewable. But we'll also leave out, like I said, we're going to leave all our information above or below. Reach out to us. We would love to have more conversations with you guys. And again, I'm Carlos. No, I'm not. I am Shoshanda.
And I'm Carlos.
That's Carlos, just for future reference. But thank you all for listening to our chat today. And we hope that you soon reach out and get involved with this because, it's going to take all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.